All right, a few more meta viewport examples. So here are examples from Google. So from this source right here. So you can go read that document, look at their examples. This is meta viewport not set. We'll come back and look at the code. Not set. Each of these squares is 50 pixels. It tells us that right here. That's that image right there, which gives the background. And we've got an article, an H1, P, article, code. Interesting, use the code to kind of give us viewport as code. Not is in bold. Should we use bold or should we use strong? I think strong is probably a better tag to use than bold. Why? It's more semantic, right? Bold is basically saying, I'm doing formatting with HTML. And we want to separate our concerns. HTML is our content, formatting is our CSS. Don't use bold. You're doing formatting in HTML. Strong just means, hey, this needs strong. And then we could format that in CSS to be bold, or we could format it to be green. But it's receiving strong emphasis. And if we look at the difference between MD and strong, gives strong importance and is typically displayed in bold. Bold versus strong. Strong is a logical state, bold's a physical state. Logical states separate presentation from content, what I just said. And by doing so, allow for it to be expressed in many different ways. Green, bold, highlighted yellow. Perhaps instead of rendering some text as bold, you want to render it red or a different size or underlined or whatever. It makes more sense to change the presentation properties of strong than it does bold. Well, you use bold and you go into CSS and make it underlined. That doesn't make sense. Bold is a physical state. There's no separation of presentation and content, right? Formatting and content. And making bold do anything other than bold text would be confusing and illogical. So is there even a argument for bold anymore? Bold text is stylistically different from normal text without conveying any special importance or relevance. It says at the bottom. There's a whole bunch of yellow there. Strong here. Oh, it is important to note that bold does have other uses when wants to draw attention without increasing importance. Draw attention without increasing importance. How do you draw attention without increasing importance? I guess Trump's doing it. Sorry. Yeah, so whatever, right? But just looking at the code. So this is a meta viewport port's not set at all. That's what it looks like here. We'll also look at that in a moment on mobile. And then here's meta viewport. It is. Oh, do you want to see the CSS? Do we look at the CSS? So we disable font boosting. And they're disabling font boosting. We'll play with that just for this illustration. And font boosting's kicking in apparently because we have a heading. Because we don't have any 2Ms on fonts over here. Or maybe it's because the margins got set to 2M. And again, this is just like my cursory experimentation with font boosting. We always have a background image. Background images are pretty cool. That's how we got that checker. That's new for you. We've never covered that. Right? So there's different settings for background images. And we'll see a web page built by somebody here in class. We're going to do a little refactoring of it. But we'll see a background image applied, right, to this, which is pretty cool. You know, so that's coming up pretty soon. And the CSS on that one is background URL, no repeat, top, center, fixed. No repeat, top, center, fixed. You could look up, that's background, and then here we had background image. So I bet you background is a shorthand for background image and maybe something else. MDN background, just out of curiosity. Shorthand for setting individual background values in a single place in the style sheet. I need green. And background can be used to set values of one or more of background clip, background color, background image, background origin, background position, background repeat, background size, background attachment. So you got to read about all of those to figure out what they do. Background green, background URL, repeat Y. So repeat up along the Y-axis. So here we just said background image is URL checker ping, PNG. And that's going to get repeated. Let's look at background image just out of hoots and hollers, kicks and giggles. Background image sets one or several background images for an element. I need green. Images are drawn on stacking context layers on top of each other. The first layer specified is drawn as if closest to the user. Borders of the element are then drawn on top of them, and the background color is drawn beneath them. How the images are drawn relative to the box and its borders is defined by background clip and background origin properties. If a specified image cannot be drawn, for example, when the file denoted cannot be loaded, browsers handle it as they would a none value. Background image none, or pass in a background image, or inherit. Takes none or an image. Examples. Basically, it looks like you're just passing in a background image URL. I was just looking to see if it had repeat or anything like that. I have to look into it more. I don't know a lot about it. All right, so the main thing that we're looking at here is we have this one, meta viewport's not set. And we have this one where we're setting meta viewport content equals width equals device width, initial scale equals 1. And we'll look at that. So these two pages are exactly the same, except the text changes a little bit. The content, right, changes a little bit. Look at them on mobile. Refresh. No meta viewport. No width of the viewport equals device width. So looks like mobile saying, hey, this is like 1024 pixels wide. And there's no font boosting going on because we disabled it, so everything's really small. If font boosting was not disabled, now we got font boosting. So they disabled font boosting just to sort of emphasize what meta viewport can do, help prevent font boosting. This is meta viewport is turned on. And right, it's all looking good. And in there, there's no font boosting. We're not disabling it. What happens if we disable it? Disable font boosting. Makes no difference. Font boosting isn't occurring. Just out of paranoia. And Voodoo Computing. We'll launch this again. Sometimes the mobile emulator doesn't completely refresh, in my experience. But no font boosting. So meta viewport, what does it do? So there, that's what it looks like without font boosting. And then here, all we do is meta viewport, meta name equals viewport, content equals width equals device width, comma, initial scale 1. I repeat that because repetition is how you learn how to make more shots on the basketball court. So I just keep saying that over and over to kind of help you get it in your head. But meta name viewport, content equals width equals device width, initial scale equals 1. So no font boosting. And interestingly, look at the 50 pixels. Each of those squares is 50 pixels, remember? So that helps illustrate it. And each of these squares is 50 pixels. So look how it changed how those 50 pixels are being displayed. Those are CSS pixels. We're mapping CSS pixels to device-independent pixels. And device-independent pixels on this one, for each device-independent pixels, there's 2 physical pixels. And if we look at the resolution of the iPhone 5, because that's what I'm on, 1136 by 640. Of course they're going to market it like that. Tell you how many physical pixels are there. Even if for usage we're only using 320 wide, because otherwise things are going to get crammed down too small. If we had like 1,000, right, things got too small. So it's kind of confusing, those things. But physical pixels, device-independent pixels, how many physical pixels for each device-independent pixel. And there's little documents, I put a few of these in the notes. Right, so here's the physical pixels. iPhone 5 is 640 wide. And iPhone 5, 640 wide physical pixels. They call it physical resolution here. And then the logical resolution is 320. Right, those are the device-independent pixels. They're calling it logical resolution. And then here's the initial scale 1. Initial scale 2. So for each CSS pixel, map it to 2 device-independent pixels. So that's the Google example. And then there's some image examples here. So what happens if we start working with some images? How many people are completely inundated? You need to listen to right? Like I said, I came out of my office after like all day trying to understand this and banging my head against it and getting good examples to show you. I was like, come from the land of physical pixels and device-independent pixels. Now you get it, right? It's like, why is he singing like that? Now you know. You only had it for an hour. And I'm like synthesizing it for you. Like, because there's all kinds of confusing documentation. They call it all kinds of different things. You even saw in that little example, it's calling logical resolution versus device-independent pixels. Like different documents talk about it with different words. There's PPI or DPI for pixel density. It's like, whoa. All right, so let's look at meta viewport and how it impacts images. We got an image, we got some text. Here's the web page. Here it is on mobile. Jammed everything down to 1,000. And I've got font boosting disabled, so my text is super small. You're going to have to go like this when you read it. And we can see that in the CSS. Font boosting has been killed. And then I set the meta viewport. It's like the superhero. Width equals device width. I know I am still disabling font boosting, but let's see what happens. Huh? Huh? My image is still huge. Font boosting was still on. Or it's disabled. What happens if I turn it off? Just curious. Makes no difference because I got Meta Viewport on. Pow. I can't do comments like that. That sucks. I do that sometimes. I set that on the right one. Yeah, cool. So let's redo this one. Ugh. We're going back to Nexus 5. So you can see, that image is just really big. The text is all right, and it's sticking in, staying in, right? It's figured out where the edge is. The mobile did that. But I've given it a really big image, and that image is just big.
That would be a way of doing it where just the picture is small, but the font. How are you doing that? But
Picture small? Yeah, make the picture smaller.
right, but I'm thinking in a case where I'm looking at someone else's site, and I'm looking at it on my phone or my tablet, and I want, I'm not so interested in the picture as opposed to getting what the information is. Like, is there a way to, I guess, set that up or on your phone, or you have to do it like per, I guess, site that you look at?
Say that again.
If I'm supposed to go to, when you press it you right click and you go to inspect element or developers tools or whatever, and then if it's mine, I can change it. But if someone else's website, am I able to go on and change that? Just on my viewpoint, not changing their entire site, but the way I view it on mine.
Yeah, you could always, just for fun, any website, you could go in and start editing different things. I don't want to be mobile. And, so...
I mean, is that going to hold, like if I edit it for myself on my settings, is it going to stay that way, or no choice, make a lot of work, but that's the way you want to view it.
Wasn't there a magnifying glass where you could click it and it...
Usually if you hold down the control button at the same time as you scroll, that works as a zoom too.
Oh, no, I wanted to, not magnify, but used to be able to inspect. Let me see, what's that say? Select an element on the page to inspect. Cool, so I want to select that. But then oh cool, it didn't click it. So I select that, and then I can come over here and I can look at the styles. And what color is the text? So they have a class thing and title, and it makes it blue. I can make it red. And changed all that. Is that what you mean?
Kind of, but that's just going to happen on your device. Not on if I open it up on her laptop, it's not going to show that red, right? Or am I actually changing their physical website?
Yeah, you changed their website. I'm going to be getting a phone call in a minute. No. It's just on my browser. Just on my browser.
And it will stay that way until you physically change it? Or does it default back to the old?
It stays that way till I refresh.
Oh.
So you can play with styles on things you're building right there and see how it changes in your window.
Refresh takes it back to its original state.
Loads it again from the browser. Loads it again from the server. All right, so that's an image. And we were looking at a pretty big image. What happens when we have a smaller image? So this is no Meta viewport, and this is font boosting disabled. Smaller image, and I want to go mobile and refresh it. So that's what it did with it. I'd have to zoom in. And then here, CSS, I'm just going to get rid of the font boosting because we don't need it. Because we got meta viewport, width equals device width, initial scale equals 1. And so, hey, that looks a little bit better. Not very readable. It's still not big enough. What happens if we have that font boosting on? No font boosting. Just reload for hoots and hollers, see what happens. And then without it,
Could you go back to that last one? I'm not sure if you changed it. The image goes smaller.
yeah, that's what I played with, was just I'm making the image smaller.
Yeah, but I mean,
This one versus that one?
Yeah.
That one, yeah, just all got jammed into 1,000. So this image is like 600 pixels. And this is similar to the first one where we just had a larger image.
Sounds like part of my question, you believe that can the image stay that tiny, and this, when you're saying font boost, is only supposed to affect the font, or it's the entire page?
Huh?
It looks like the entire page. That's, I want a small picture to say exactly what it is, and I want my font to be boosted only. Is that what we're doing font boosting, is only, it doesn't.
You don't want your font boosting. You're just going to reformat your font in a smaller size.
Just
Okay,
Yeah.
she's saying that if the picture is 100 pixels tall and 100 pixels wide and the font is 16 pixels tall, she wants the picture to stay at 100 pixels by 100 pixels, but she wants the font to be 20 pixels tall.
Okay.
Yes.
So same size image that we were looking at before. Right?
You're welcome.
I think that's what this example is going to show. Disabled font boosting. And on the image, I said max width 100%. Height automatic. So when I show this, I get a little spongy in my image.
Now I feel I got my money's worth today.
Got your money's worth? But still no meta viewport, so just shrinks everything small. 1,000 pixels. I didn't set the viewport width equals to device width. When I set viewport width equals to device width, so you can see here, viewport width equals device width, initial scale equals 1. Perfect. So you're going to build mobile first. You'll have smaller images. The images need to have a little sponginess, responsiveness in them, so that if it's on a Google Nexus 5 that's 360, it fills it in. If it's on an iPhone 5, which is 320, it fills it in. If it's on, I don't know, Nexus 7, which is 600, does as much as it can. Maybe I'd have a breakpoint before then, and then it'd be like the next group, load this image instead of that image, right? And my font's pretty dang small on that. So what happens when I turn font boosting on? That had no font boosting. That had font boosting on. This has no font boosting. Still same deal. And what is my font set to? H1. What's it look like if I'm not mobile? 16. I don't like that. But the image was looking good. So I don't have it totally figured out. We're kind of reaching my wall of, I'm cutting territory here too, learning some of this stuff. And I did the same thing with the divs. So that doesn't feel like a totally cohesive example. Like I didn't leave you with the awesome solution. Look, it looks beautiful at every level. But you got a little bit of it, and you totally understand. Meta name equals viewport, content equals width equals device width, comma initial scale 1. Totally hit that. I feel like I overkilled it. I feel like we understood it better right here. But then I kind of wanted to see, like, well, there's Google's example where that font's pretty small too. Google Nexus 7, Nexus 5. Doesn't it seem smaller? Does it seem the same to you? That's with Meta Viewport set and not set. Font boosting turned off. I guess that's right. Google examples. Image examples. No font boosting, obviously crappy. No Meta Viewport. Much better, so that makes sense. All right, I want you to take a minute and get a pencil and write down the meta tag. Write down the syntax of it on a piece of paper. Meta viewport tag.